Welcome to Capitol Preview, a weekly bipartisan discussion with Iowa legislators about the key issues facing our state. Brought to you by MediaCom.
Good morning, and welcome to another segment of Capitol Preview. My name is Bill Peard, and I'll be your host this morning. Our guest today on Capitol Preview is Representative Tom Sands from Louisa County. He's a Republican from Louisa County. Republican Sands, or Representative Sands, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you, Bill. It's good to be here.
You know what, we talk about this, I think, every legislative session, and that is TIF reform. So why don't you kind of explain to our viewers, first of all, what TIF is, and second of all, what TIF reform will be looking like?
Be happy to, although it's a subject that isn't very easily explained, but tax incremental financing, which is what TIF stands for, basically lets taxing districts, typically a city, but it can be a county, set up an urban renewal district that sets up a base. In other words, it kind of freezes the taxable value within that district at the time of the setup of the TIF district. And then the increment, all the growth, goes to whoever basically sets the TIF district up, quite often cities. So the city would grab the county share, the school district share, and every other taxing district share of that growth in there, usually for a set period of time. And it's to incentivize growth in that area. And then once that growth is seen, then the increment is supposed to be released out to all the different taxing districts. So while there's a short-term sacrifice, everybody tends to win under that type of scenario. What has happened too often is not all TIF districts mature or have an end date, so they go on into perpetuity. Right. And not all cities typically release their increment, and so city or counties and school districts typically do not see the growth. And when we look at K-12 funding, the state of Iowa backfills lost revenue and property taxes into the foundation formula. In fact, to the tune, I believe, of $55 million this fiscal year is what the state will be kicking into local school districts just to make up for lost revenue in TIF reform that doesn't give schools any more money, it just simply fills the hole. So what the bill does is try to look at a couple different areas that I believe needs to be reformed, and that is all TIF districts should have an end date. None of them should go on into perpetuity. That way the scenario that a short sacrifice will end up in a long-term gain for everybody only happens if there is an end time. So the bill starts unwinding TIF districts that go into perpetuity, and once they've reached their 21st anniversary, then the base will start growing at 7.5% until the increment is gone. And then it also sets up a 20-year end time for all TIF districts going into the future. And then the last thing is it prohibits TIF districts to build public buildings, because public buildings never come out on the tax roll, and so they would never add to the scenario that everybody gains in the future. So those are kind of the main points of the bill.
Very good. I thought you explained it very well.
Thank you.
Tom. The next hot issue, it seems, on the legislative calendar or agenda is the broadband bill. I know the governor campaigned on that during his last campaign and election, that he wanted to connect every Iowan, which went to connect every acre, that went to connect every farm, school, and city, I believe. So why don't you, because I know you've been a big part of that, because it started off in commerce. So why don't you kind of just explain to the viewers what the broadband bill is all about and kind of where we are at with it? So
be happy to. In fact, I was on the subcommittee while I was in the Commerce Committee, and then appointed myself to the subcommittee in the Ways and Means Committee. But my good friend and colleague, Representative County, is the one that is floor managing that bill, both the last time it circulated through the House and this year as well. And what we're trying to do is recognize that not all places in Iowa have the capability of attaining high-speed broadband. And the FCC has determined a speed definition anyway of what that is, and it's 25 meg down and 3 up, I believe it is.
That's correct.
And that's what the bill does then for the state of Iowa, establish that in order to be classified as high-speed broadband, it needs to be able to attain those speeds or greater. And of course, those speeds may be fast to people like you and I, but there are people much younger than us that are having much higher demand for higher speeds for video and stuff.
Yep.
But it's a good starting point. It's an excellent starting point because there's many places in Iowa that are not able to attain that. The other thing that has happened is there's been a big change in agriculture and their demand for technology. Mm-hmm. A lot of tractors, combines, sprayers, all that have modems inside of them that connect to broadband somewhere, a cell tower, that they are able to utilize a lot of this higher speed and technology to better pin place their fertilizer, their sprays, so it does not go on, it does not raise their cost, and it also helps them to minimize the usage. In fact, a nitrogen fertilizer would be one, and obviously that's in the press out here with some of the lawsuits between the Des Moines Water Works and some Northwest counties. So I think it's a great first step forward. Obviously, private industry has done a remarkable job in the state of Iowa of making high-speed broadband available where the demand is, but there's some very rural or hard to get to places, even in urban Iowa, that they need just a little incentive to be able to build out, I believe.
Sure. That was an excellent explanation of that. I think people have read it, and I don't know that they fully understand it, but I thought that was a great explanation of kind of, it is complicated, and it's, you know, it's a big issue to try and tackle.
It is.
Next item I want to talk to you a little bit about is the budget, and I know that you are a numbers guy, and so I'm sure this is not the fun part of your job. Is you guys going to be taking up the budget now for the next few weeks? So.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least let's hope we take it up. I do enjoy numbers actually, and enjoy working with them, balancing with them. And most of my life I've had to do that in the private sector, and so it's kind of nice to be able to use that expertise up here in the state legislature as well. There's some good news and some bad news with the state budget. Number one, our fiscal house is in order, and in excellent order, especially compared to a lot of the other states or even our federal government. The cash reserve accounts are full. We have very little debt. And most of that was done under Governor Culver with the prison and some iJobs stuff. But we've been able to pay off some of that debt early, have not taken on any more debt, and the bills are paid, and that's the good news. Okay, the bad news is our expenditures are outgrowing our new revenues. And it's not because the revenues have fallen, it's just that they have not grown at the pace that they have the previous years. If you look at the REC estimate, it's going to show state revenue projected for fiscal year 16 is growing at 6% over 15. But that is extremely misleading because they have lowered the estimate for 15. So once you lower 15 estimate revenues, 16 automatically the base expands to 6%. But when you look at true growth, from what was spent in 15 to the new monies in 16, it's about 2.6%. So that's really the growth in revenues we have, and the expenditures are outpacing that. And so we have made a commitment to K-12 education that they will get an increase. It's 1.25, which they believe they want more, but they are the only ones in state government this year that is going to get an increase. Everybody else will be frozen or reduced, and many of them will be reduced in order to give the increase to K-12. So that's the dilemma of the bad news that we're in.
And numbers don't lie, unfortunately. You have to deal with real figures.
Yes,
when you're putting a budget
you can
together.
twist them,
right?
But numbers don't lie.
Yep. Income tax reform. That's something I think would be a hot issue to most Americans, and we're approaching April 15th, and a good time to remind everybody about income tax.
It is, and this is one of my pet bills that I've been working on actually most of my legislative career up here, but definitely as chair of the Ways and Means Committee is, I believe, the best way to spur economic development and growth is to get more people's hard-earned money into their hands, or keep it into their hands and not take it from government. So what our income tax bill this year is looking at is an optional flat tax. Iowa has 9 brackets that you can file under your income tax with many different deductions and credits. Well, the optional flat tax says you can continue to file under the present system, or you can file a flat rate of 5%, no deductions, no credits, with the exception of we'll give you a standardized deduction, and it's about 3 times higher than what the normal or the present standard deduction is. So that helps a lot of the lower income filers. And then we're also going to exempt pension, retirement income off of Iowa's income taxes, because if you worked hard all your life, you've paid your taxes hard all your life, and now you've saved up for your retirement, you should not have to pay income taxes on your retirement income as well. So we're going to exempt that. And as we have just come to the end where we exempted all the Social Security income from Iowa income taxes, it's a great time to go to the next level with pension income. And that helps a lot of the middle class filers in their income taxes. So I think it's a great bill. It's a great step forward. With the fiscal budget problems or tightness that we're in right now, it's going to be hard to get it passed this year, but we've got to keep the conversation alive. And if people don't like this bill, then they need to come forward and say, well, what can we do to change it to make it better? Because I believe it's one of the better income tax reform packages that have come forward in the Iowa House for several years, and I think it's a good bill to continue to push forward and get more of Iowans' money back into their pockets.
All right. Well, unfortunately, that's the kind of our time's up, but we appreciate you coming in here this morning, Tom. Great conversation. It sounds like you guys are taking up some very critical and important issues with our state. So we appreciate that very much. All right. Thank you, Representative Tom Sands. And that is it for Capitol Preview. We appreciate Tom coming in here and answering questions that are on Iowans' minds. Our next guest on Capitol Preview will be former Senator Jeff Angelo. Thank you.